Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a superhero review. I'll be having a look at the film Blankman today. So Blankman is a superhero comedy made in the 90s and basically tells a tale of two young brothers who kind of live in a very poor neighbourhood. They're sort of obsessed with superheroes, in particular the 60s version of the Batman series. Cut to, you know, obviously when they're in their adult life. One brother kind of works in a kind of low rent TV station, giving us sort of like tabloid sort of headlines and things like that. The other brother seems to be a little bit eccentric and kind of makes all these sort of inventions and sort of contraptions, basically, probably more like a more apt description. And he kind of looks like he's maybe working in some sort of, you know, electrical repair centre or basically something along the lines of that. And by accident, he happens to make a substance that pretty much makes anything sort of bulletproof or damage-proof, fireproof, whatever. So he makes a costume out of it. Now, in the meantime, you've got they're raised by their grandmother, and she is sort of killed by some mafia types after sort of standing up in front of them basically, and kind of giving him some smack. And she's killed, and it basically spurs Daryl Walker, who is the sort of the inventor one, who's the kind of you know, maybe not the quite. He's, like I say, he's very eccentric. He basically inspired him to become a superhero. So he kind of makes this sort of makeshift costume, and he sort of douses it in this sort of bulletproof sort of material, and basically has a sort of fairly humble beginnings as a superhero, just saving, you know, a woman in an elevator, sort of when she's giving birth and things like that. But eventually, he sort of, after a few sort of like minor sort of victories, he basically sort of gets a bit of notoriety and the sort of public eye, and ultimately he sort of attracts the attention of a female news reporter, who the other brother actually is trying to sort of chat up at the same time, and ends up having a bit of a romance with her. And in the meantime, he's sort of like heroic deeds are sort of escalating, right until they come to the sort of the finale of the film, where he's basically going to fight the bad guys who sort of kidnapped his sort of, you know, this female reporter, and ultimately killed his grandmother at the end. So that's the basic plot of the film. So this is a kind of, it's a strange comedy because it's very, very juvenile humour. You know, I watched this when I was fairly young, but rewatching it just for this review, it does have a little bit of adult humour in there. To be honest with you, there's quite a lot of sex jokes in there and things like that. A mild bit of swearing, so it's not really for kids, but the actual humour very much is so. So it's a strange thing, because I don't know who it was actually meant to be made for, whether it's meant to be made for adults who I think are going to be maybe a little bit put off by the sort of the juvenile nature of it, and at the same time, I wouldn't imagine too many very young kids, at least, will be allowed to watch it due to the sort of like the more adult sort of sometimes sort of jokes and language and things like this. So it's a kind of the question here is who is this film made by, or made for? Sorry. Now that said, there are some funny jokes in this, and I did find myself chuckling to a few of the jokes in this. Probably because it appeals to my sense of humour. Now, I mentioned the 60s Batman series, and this is the closest sort of film, or the closest sort of screen representation that it's kind of related to, if you know what I mean. It very, very much tries to sort of ape that style of you know, the Batman 60s TV show. So much so, when they have the fights, they have the sort of the blam and the sort of that sort of thing sort of coming up on screen, and also the sort of tilted camera angles and things like that, and the very, very sort of hammy, overacting villains who have sort of overly complicated plots like that. So what it's going to be here, if you like the 60s Batman TV show, then you will like this as a simple extension. So it's a little bit more adult in regards to some of its humour, but ultimately it's very much the same sort of style as the '60s Batman TV show. It's obviously a big influence, and it's referenced multiple times in the film. Even so much so the sort of the animated intro is very reminiscent of the '60s Batman show. Now, as a movie as a whole, I don't think it works particularly well because, as I say, it's unsure of who it's sort of going for, really as a sort of target audience, and so I think it probably maybe alienates certain people. Maybe the humour is a bit too juvenile for some adults. But it's an entertaining time, but it's not a film I don't think you'd kind of watch multiple times. It's a bit of fun just to sort of pass the time. The performances are quite likeable, if very much over the top. The guy who plays the sort of the main mafia guy, it's all he ever seems to play, to be honest with you. So, but an entertaining sort of time waster if you're not really sort of wanting something deep at all, really. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? Let me know what you think. It's very, very similar to the other film, Meteor Man, which is kind of a very similar theme, actually. Although I would have to say I think Meteor Man's probably a superior film. Not just because he actually has superpowers in Meteor Man. I just think it's a better film overall. But anyway, leave me a comment. Which one do you prefer? I look forward to seeing you next time on the Superhero Review. See you later.